Hey folks, this is Soul with another video. Earlier I made some initial reactions to a Blizzard blog post revealing some sweeping changes to dungeons, from heroic dungeons all the way to like Mythic Plus. I'm going to go over them again today with some more sort of measured analysis. But first I should describe my player profile to help you understand if, in case you notice any certain bias in my commentary in this video. So I play as a paladin and I tank. And I don't pug. I would just play with like guildmates or people who I know very well. I only really play that paladin tank, no other classes. I also happen to get ahead of the curve in raids. I go for Keystone Master, and I only really care to get enough gear. I just get as much as I need in order to get those sorts of achievements, and then I farm for transmog. Boom, that's me in a nutshell. So to help me, I have this chart that includes all the information that we recently learned. I made this for me, but also to help people out. I'm gonna have a link to that sheet. It's gonna be in the video description, and check back often for updates as we get closer to the new season. When season 4 begins, we're going to get another 39 item level bump in gear, just like the transition from season 2 to season 3. What that's going to mean is that explorer gear, as in like the stuff that we're going to get from like world quests and the like, it's going to have an item level range of 454 to 476. Specifically, normal dungeons are going to drop item level 460 gear. The adventurer track is where things already start to get pretty interesting. The WoW team announced that heroic dungeons would become more difficult in Season 4, not unlike Mythic Zeros in terms of mob health and damage, but short of the additional boss mechanics that would typically come from Mythic level dungeons. The vault rewards are also going to be slightly better. People who run heroics right now, they get veteran gear from the vault. These will be ranked 4 out of 8, and to upgrade it any further, they need to get drakes from other sources. So not a lot of changes here. Recall though that each of the upgrade ranks overlap each other. High-level adventurer class gear isn't so different from veteran gear, and max-level adventurer gear is just a step away from champion. Mythic Zero is where most of the attention has gone to with these changes, I think, because this isn't like your dad's Mythic Zero that feels like just a step up from heroic dungeons. According to the WoW team, Mythic Zero difficulty is going to feel like a Mythic plus 10. It's going to be hard, although, for context, when it comes to gear rewards, a plus 10 is equal to the first few bosses of the normal version of the Amir Jasil raid. And in this case, with Mythic Zero, there's no timer, and they can only be cleared once per week. The rewards, though, they're getting jacked up, much more than what we're getting in heroic dungeons in the coming season. Right now, Mythic Zeros give gear on the Adventurer track, and veteran gear from the Great Vault. Whoopee. In Season 4 and the War Within, completing a Mythic Zero will drop champion level gear. It's the same class as a normal level raid, and that's item level 493. It'll also drop drakes, so you can at least upgrade them to at least 4 out of 8. And then from the vault, you're going to get hero class gear. Pretty amazing, but we need to kind of float in this space so we can understand how earning this gear will feel differently from how things are now. The intent at this level of play is to create a wide open space, I think, for people who want challenge, but not quite the Mythic Plus sort of challenge with the timers and the affixes. Mythic Zeros sound like they're going to be tuned pretty high. In fact, the WoW team, like I said, they're saying it's going to be the equivalent of running a plus 10 just without the timers, the affixes, yada yada yada. And we may say to ourselves, hey dude, like, we're not that skilled. A plus 10 is like the normal raid, and maybe that's hard, but that's why these upgrade systems are in place. A lot of players this season, I think, are going to be running heroics for gear and maxing them out with whelplings that are found outdoors to get the item level that they need to safely progress into Mythic Zeros. No longer are we going to have instances where, hey, I reached max level, let's go straight to Mythics and knock that stuff out. We're going to feel this kind of pace of progression. Fully upgraded adventure level gear is just below the gear that'll drop from Mythic Zeros. Again, it's giving us that feel of building up gear with these, whelplings and flight zones and whatnot. We get that feel of progression into Mythic that has a much more visible, but also kind of a natural direction to go. We don't know what other sources there might be for, say, veteran gear, which was passed around from the Emerald Dream Zone, and we don't know how delves and other world content tracks are going to work out in the War Within. For these kinds of players though, the gearing up and progression into Mythic dungeons, it's still not going to happen overnight either. For these players, Mythic Zeros are the end game that Blizzard is trying to make for them. It's going to be a little bit harder than Raid Finder, but it's also easier and more accessible than Mythic Plus because all we're asking for in these dungeons is to just clear. Like if you're having trouble, you can replace party members, you can change talents or specs, or just come back the next day. It's simply a round of difficult dungeons to complete each week for champion drops and heroes from the vault, which is, again, pretty crazy. But now let's move on to Mythic Plus. If Mythic Zeros are supposed to be the equivalent of plus 10s, then Mythic Plus is going to feel tougher at lower levels. But in a nutshell, it's just the numbers are being squished. Key levels 2 through 5 are going to have only one affix. It'll be Fortified or Tyrannical. It's going to give champions as drops. We're even going to get worm crests and heroes, hero gear from the vault. 5s and higher will have 2 affixes, and notably 6s will be what drops aspect crests. 7s are going to start dropping hero gear from the dungeons, and we're going to need to run 8s to get myth gear from the vault. And here's what's wild though. The third affix doesn't show up until plus 10s, but to get myth level gear, you only need to run plus 8s. So compare this to the previous season, like season 3. If I wanted aspects for upgrades, I need to run 16s, so you get the 3 affixes. If I want myth gear, I need to run 18s, but in season 4, that third affix basically doesn't exist in my space of interest. It's pretty crazy. There's a definitive line being drawn between the player who just wants gear versus the player who's aiming to push and get the glory. And then of course there's the player just looking for a bit more of an accessible challenge. And everyone sits somewhere in between, but everyone's going to have a difficulty to suit our satisfaction or to aim to beat. This is just about what I asked for a while back. Changes at the low to mid-level skill band to give more for players to play while mostly leaving the top end alone, at least for now. The WoW team took this a few steps further. By making the plus 10 and higher levels strictly for the dungeon enthusiast, I'd like to think that this opens up future conversations to have where those players can better advocate for certain changes. Maybe right now, there's a bit too much overlap between the highly skilled and career-minded players and others who just want to run that 118 a week for mid-level gear. It reads like a further effort to get players of similar progression levels, not just skill levels, but progression levels, to mostly play together. Ideally, top players can give feedback and have changes that suit them without impacting everyone else. Maybe having that third affix won't work well, and something else will need to take its place, like a positive affix or no affix, maybe just enhanced scaling as an example. There are also a few unknowns that folks would like answer to, like how are delves and world content going to factor into this, or like what will be the new breakpoints for the likes of Keystone Master and Keystone Hero, and unlocking portals and that sort of stuff. And what's to be done about raiding, because these changes definitely make dungeons feel like the way to gear, making me wonder what can make raids continue to be appealing over the course of an entire season, or multiple seasons. In my case, we can progress through Heroic fairly quickly, but the logistics of doing a Mythic raid just aren't in our interest, so how can I keep my team together? Mythic Plus has that replayability and variety that unfortunately raids lack at the moment. But maybe something will be in store for us in Season 4 as it's revealed hopefully soon. Overall, at least regarding dungeons and Mythic Plus though, this whole announcement, these announced changes, it feels like a banger. Everyone's a winner except for maybe the top end player, but maybe this is a way of, again, starting up new conversations that are specific to them, that feel a bit more isolated. They're not going to influence the rest of the game. I know what I'll be doing going forward, at least I'll at least be doing a few Mythic Zeros for Vault gear, I guess, and at most 6s for aspects to upgrade that Vault gear. And if I get interested in alts, I'll just keep slamming heroics and doing weekly content to gear up, and then, once again, back to Mythic Zeros. But what do you think? I'd love to hear your comments and questions, and don't forget to check out that spreadsheet. I'll be updating it as we learn more info. Please like the video, subscribe for more stuff, catch me live, and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.